Hey guys, this PowerPoint will walk you through how to do MLA citations and documentation. So first, let's just start with an overview of what that means. So when we talk about documenting or citing our sources, what we're talking about is making the citations. And the reason that we do this is to give credit to the sources where we originally got the information from, which enables us to avoid plagiarism. It also helps to build your credibility as a writer to show that you've done effective research. And then also by giving your reader citations, you enable them to go back to the original source and read more if they so desire. So when we talk about citations, MLA has two types of citations that you're going to need to do for your research paper. First, you have your works cited citations, and that's the list of citations that appears at the end of your paper. And then you have your parenthetical citations. Those are also called in-text citations. And those are little short citations that appear throughout the body of your essay. They appear in text. So hence the word in-text citations. For your works cited citations, every works cited entry that you have on your works cited page at the end of your paper should correspond with a parenthetical citation in the body of your paper. And every parenthetical citation that you have in the body of your paper should have a matching works cited citation to go with it. So let's start with the works cited citations. So I know you're familiar with these, at least partially, because we did them for the image analysis essay. But let's just do a quick overview. So the works cited page, like I said, is a list of sources that you used in a paper. You only want to list the sources that you actually use. So if you read a source but it didn't end up being used in your paper, you don't need to put that on your works cited page. The works cited page appears as the last page of your paper, and in general, it gives your reader the following information. It's going to tell your reader who the author was of the source, the title of the source, the container, which refers to the larger place where the source appeared. So for example, an article in a newspaper, the container would be the newspaper. An article in a magazine, the container would be the magazine, and so on. The publisher, the date of publication, page numbers if applicable, and then the URL if the source is electronic. When do you need to cite? When do you need a citation? You need a citation anytime you quote or anytime you paraphrase or summarize information from somewhere else. So anytime you borrow words or ideas from another source, you need to provide a citation. Here's a sample of what a works cited page would look like. So you can see that it's titled Works Cited. You can see that it's alphabetized by the first word in the citation. You can see here where I have those 3 dashes. That tells me that the author is the same, so that Brenda Miller Holmes is the same author as the first source and the second source. You can see too that I use the hanging indents. So if my citation is more than 1 line, my second line is indented 1 tab. So that's what an effective works cited page would look like. Let's talk briefly now about parenthetical citations. So like I said, these are also called in-text citations. And parenthetical citations are citations that appear within the body of your essay. They appear in parentheses, so that's why they're called parenthetical. The citations match your works cited page. So if you cite something in your paper, it then needs to have a citation on your works cited page. And the reason that we use parenthetical citations is to give credit to other people's words or ideas. So it's important to keep in mind that if you borrow someone's ideas, you still need a citation. And then usually the general format for a parenthetical citation appears like this. So it would be the author's last name, so Bell in this case, and then the page number where the information came from. So certainly there's going to be situations where you don't have a page number or you don't have an author's last name. And so there's different ways to handle the in-text citations, but in general, that's what your in-text citation should look like. So you use a parenthetical citation anytime you quote, anytime you paraphrase, anytime you summarize. And then where you place it is after the quote or after the section of information that's been paraphrased or summarized. So here's what it looks like in practice. So you have a snippet of text, and then you can see my quote starts here and my quote ends here, and then I've circled for you the citation. So this tells me that the author is Skelton. It tells me that the page number is number 4, and then note that the period goes outside the parentheses And you don't need a period after the word deaths as well. You don't need two periods. This period at the end, outside of the parentheses, functions as the period for the sentence. If your author is given in the signal phrase, so remember that the signal phrase is the little piece of text leading into information, then you don't need to relist their last name in the parenthetical citation. So for example, if this is my information, in hurricane force, Michael Miles explains that cool air draws heat and moisture from warm bodies of water to form a storm. Because I've mentioned the author, Michael Miles, in the signal phrase, I don't need to re-mention him in the in-text citation. I can just put the page number. So some other scenarios that you might run into is if you have a source where no author is given. So if you don't have an author, you go to the next thing in the citation, which would be the title. And so instead of giving me an author last name, you would give me, in parentheses, an abbreviated version of the title. So if the title is really long, you can just give me the first couple words of the title. I just need enough of the title to match it to the corresponding works cited citation. And notice too that the title, like titles of articles should be in MLA format, is in quotations. If you don't have a page number, there's nothing you can do about that. You can just put the author last name or the title if you don't have an author last name. If the source doesn't have an author or a page number, then you're going to go with the title. Another scenario that sometimes comes up is if you have an outside quote in a source. So for example, let's say that this is from a source where the author's last name is James, but James is quoting Michael Jordan. So you need to give credit to James because that's the author of your source, but you also need to give credit to Michael Jordan because he's the person who said the quote. So what you would do in this scenario is you would start with who said the quote. I'm going to get rid of those extra quotation marks. So Michael Jordan said the quote. So my signal phrase tells me who said the quote. Michael Jordan says, I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying. In your parenthetical citation, you're going to give credit to the author of the source where you read the Michael Jordan quote. And the way that you do that is you put QTD, that stands for quoted, in James, and then that tells me that James is the author of the source where you read the quote by Michael Jordan. You only do this QTD in if you have an outside quote in the source. If the author himself, if James had said the quote, then you don't need the QTD in. You can just say James. Okay, so I know that citations can be intimidating and there's a lot of different scenarios that can come up. So if you have any questions, please email me.